but I hope we won't have audio or other problems. Technology is great, and sometimes it doesn't work very well, so we'll cross our fingers. The purpose of what we're here for today is to talk about the next stage of the application process for funding, which is the letter of intent. Let me just introduce myself by saying that I have worked for 15 years now, more than 15 years, with partners, community-based organizations, and international NGOs and universities on a number of participatory research projects, mostly focusing in my case on climate change and on water management, watershed management. And so I teach research methods and community organizing at York University. So that is the perspective that I bring to this workshop today. As you know, IPEP, or I call it IPEP, Artificial Intelligence for, what is it, PEP? Liswa, help me. It's
AI4PEP. AI4PEP.
What's the PEP though? What does it stand for?
Pandemic, epidemic preparedness and response. Right.
Okay. So basically health, right? For improved and equitable health. That's the way I think of it. The focus of this overall funding stream is to try to support participatory grassroots research on improving the equity of health systems and learning from the lessons of the pandemic to try to prevent inequitable outcomes in the future. In other words, being proactive about it. So that participatory piece, the way of working with the users of the information that you'll be generating in your research to make sure that it's applicable and immediately usable by those people outside the university, maybe in government, but maybe in NGOs, maybe people who are working in the health sector outside universities. That's a crucial part. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. What I'm saying is not going to be necessarily applicable in, everything that I say is not necessarily applicable to every project. There are very many differences, I know, in what you're considering doing. So please take this as an offering of some suggestions where I'm putting some things on the table for you to consider. And so we'll take it from there. Let's see if I can get to the next slide. There we go. So the letter of intent form that I'm sure you all have access to has a number of parts, and we will talk about some of those parts, but really what I'm going to try to do is take a step back from that letter of intent and ask you to envision your project as an overall thing with your knowledge users, with the people that you are going to be working with, and the people who you think will.
Elie, you're muted. Elie, Prof. Perkins, can you hear me? You're muted.
Sorry, I had muted her. I was just trying to figure out the mutation. So sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
I had muted everyone actually. Can I mute everyone and then you unmute yourself, Elie? Okay. Sorry.
Oh, there we go. I got it. You figured it out. Lisa, thank you. You're great. Yeah, it's important for everyone to keep their mics muted because otherwise we get a lot of background noise, but I need to be able to talk. Thank you. Thank you. So we want this application process to be very accessible And we're trying to facilitate your asking questions and also communicating among yourselves. Many times, as people communicate among themselves, they can share information that's very useful to everybody. So this leads right into what I wanted to start with. I wish we were all in a room together. I wish we could have informal side conversations, and maybe you could be going, what is she talking about now? Let's move on to the topic, whatever. You know, a collaborative meeting, a fun meeting together is the best way for people to share all kinds of information that they have and bring different perspectives to the topic at hand. I've already was mentioning that it would be great if people could introduce themselves in the chat, your name, your country, a little bit about your project, if you're comfortable sharing that, so that we have a sense of who's in this virtual room, who we're working with to do this overall, to accomplish the overall objectives of this big project, which is making health more equitable in a proactive way worldwide. I mean, it's a big goal. So normally it's a good idea to model the kind of respectful communication you want to have with all the people that are working on your project from the beginning. And so normally I would have liked to have done this in a more participatory way, and certainly in a way with more photographs and fewer words. I'm very aware that this is going to be a wordy presentation, but it'll be available to you after. You don't have to take notes, just kind of think about it in relation to your project as we go through, and hopefully we'll be able to share and have a bit of discussion time at the end. Yeah, here's where I would have put a photo of all of the people who were at the first Zoom call that we had. There was a photo of everybody's faces in their boxes. It was beautiful. Imagine that. We are part of a community. We're working together. So the form that you're asked to complete for the letter of intent asks for information in two ways. One of them is there are check boxes where you have some choices of what, you know, like keywords and areas of focus and things like that. Your country, your region, the related research. Sometimes you're asked to upload pieces of CVs or summarize the kinds of research that members of your team have done before. It's fairly easy to take that from other documents that you probably have. So this is, the check boxes are the easy part, right? But then come the text boxes, which is where you're asked to enter a particular aspect, the objectives, how this links to preparedness and response to infectious disease, etc. And these are the boxes where you have freedom to explore and to, well, not to explore, to present your project. Actually, the boxes are all limited, so there's a certain amount of pressure, right, to explain it all in a way that makes sense along these parameters that the boxes name. So the tendency of some people is to, I mean, me included, right? You go down the list and you think, okay, what am I going to say for this box? What am I going to put in this box? And you sort of do it bit, bit, bit. What I'm proposing to you today is that there's a step before that. There's a step that you might want to consider doing that will help you to express your project with a lot of passion and interest and coherence. If you think about it with your knowledge users, with all the partners that you'll be working with ahead of time, and get some vision together, get some cooperative sense of what it is that you're trying to do. Who is this for? What are the reasons that you need this information and you need to do this project with other people? What are the overall goals that you're trying to advance? And how will your project advance those goals? If you spend some time visioning, then you'll be able to do the form and do especially the text boxes with a lot more coherence, I would say. And your enthusiasm for the project is more likely to come through. These are groups of people that I've worked with in the last few years who have been collectively working on projects together. The groups of people include the academics and the professionals, the ones with PhDs, and the ones from the communities that have lived experience and knowledge of the problems that they face. These are all projects about climate justice and climate change, but you know, you can meet people where they are. Are they on the beach? Are they in the jungle? Are they in the fields? Are they in, you know, community organizations? Wherever they are, you meet with them. Go. You don't have to ask them to come to the campus or the hospital. You can talk with them about what kinds of information they need, about the situations they're facing, dealing in this case with healthcare challenges or disease or pandemics or disasters. And you can share with them as equals about how to address those problems. These photos were all taken by young scholars, doctoral, postdoctoral, and early career scholars that I worked with over the past few years in Latin America and Africa in this case. But I'm sure you recognize yourself in your situations in some of these pictures. People have information, they have knowledge to share, and it's up to you to ask them in the process of figuring out who your knowledge users are and how you can help them. These are the people who will give your results legs, who will use it to push governments, who governments everywhere do not do anything unless they're pushed, right? You need the politics of mobilizing data and accomplishing positive progressive change in the world is a politics of linking university research and expertise with lived experience and grassroots needs. I firmly believe that. And the projects that you're engaged in, the flexibility that you have in this program are exactly targeted that way. So AI, artificial intelligence, and the technological knowledge that most of you have is a tool to facilitate that process. And computer models and technology are only as good as the information that is fed into them. And when the knowledge and lived experience of people at the grassroots are not reflected in the official government statistics or in the numbers that are easily at hand, it's the job of researchers to supplement those statistics and bring new information, new knowledge to the table through AI, but with a very political intent. Okay? We'll have chances for discussion about this. I hope that this is resonating with some of you. As I said before, lots of words on these slides, but they'll be available to you later. So some scientists, let me say, some academics in general, are more familiar and more comfortable than others with this kind of a participatory research approach. Many of us have been trained in academic systems which are quite elitist and quite, sort of maybe theoretical or top down. Many of us have been inculcated through our academic training to believe that we know and we do for others. And that is an academic approach which is fairly antithetical to this idea of participatory research. But there's also a strong and growing empirical academic trend that documents how participatory research is linked to political participation and to academia working at the service of society rather than at the service of keeping society segmented. And there's a lot of support in the literature. And I think IDRC tries to fund this kind of participatory work for this very reason. That, you know, universities in the service of the larger society make a lot of sense politically. And what we're finding in Canada is if the more relevant your work is, the more politically popular funding universities is. So this is all tied up together in, you know, protecting your own jobs in academia and in hospitals perhaps, by making sure that you are working with people outside the university. And so one of the things I want to do in this workshop is to encourage you to reach out to more and more people, to people outside the university who are using the work that you'll be doing and who really need it in order to do their jobs better. So if you haven't yet found a knowledge user, an organization, or a union, or even some progressive politicians who are really hankering for particular kinds of information, now is the time to start thinking about who those people are. And if you should reach out to them and indicate that in the end users box who these groups are and what the potential is for working with them as research partners. Then once you get a shared vision with your knowledge users of what your project is, then you can write about it and go back to those text boxes, you know, with 1,000 words here and 250 words there, and you can describe little pieces of what you want to do in your project in a way that it all hangs together. It's organized according to the purposes of each of the text boxes: gender, research ethics, inclusion, you know, SDGs, project management, policy relevance, all of that. But each little piece is part of this overall picture of the project's importance. I know it's easier said than done, but if you think about that goal, that is a way to approach the letter of intent stage. Let me just talk about two little pieces: the title and the lay summary. Try to make them simple, clear. Try to make them understandable to your knowledge users, to people outside academia, to anybody who's aware that healthcare is a really important service for everybody in the world, and that it should be done in an equitable way because diseases are contagious, right? We're all affected by how healthcare is provided in every country. So the title and the lay summary. By lay, that means, you know, for the general lay person, a general audience, write in plain language and be clear about what you're trying to do and who it's supposed to help and how it will help them. So there were a couple of particular concerns and questions that have come up in the email correspondence that Jean-Jacques and Liswa and Jude have been dealing with. And I wanted to take a few minutes to address some of these particular questions about gender, And the next two slides are some of these things as well. I'll let you read the words. I don't want to necessarily read it word by word myself. One of the things that I did in preparation for this workshop was to look in the literature. You know, if you use the keywords gender, participatory research, health, majority world, that's what I used to usually say instead of global south, you get all kinds of work that's been done. There's lots of resources and examples of research that, you know, there are health-oriented projects that focus specifically on gender, that look at gender differentials, for example, in who got sick and who died of COVID, but also in work-related risks and hazards, since most of the people doing care work everywhere are women, but also questions of, you know, intersectionality and other kinds of considerations, gender-based violence that can happen in times of crisis. It's more likely to take place in times of crisis for whatever reason. If your project is specifically focused on gender, on learning and gathering more information about gender-related differences, then that's one thing. But every project will have gender implications, either with regard to the workers and the people in the health system that you're talking about, or with regard to risks in society at large that may differ along gender lines, or with regard to technology's impacts and differential access to technology by women and men, and along other gender lines as well. So if you are feeling stymied or uncertain about how to bring gender in or fill in that gender box on the LOI form, one way to think about it would be to do a little bit of searching online and find other articles and projects that may serve as examples for you in how to bring in gender considerations. The biggest thing is ask women. ask your knowledge users, ask your partners to talk to you about what the gender implications are for them. And certainly do not assume that men know what's good for women. Talk to women. That is also easier said than done, because in all countries, women often have a double or triple workday, part of which is paid and a lot of which is unpaid. And so it's often hard to get women to come to meetings or put aside time to be interviewed. And so this in itself is indicative of why data about women is often not included in official statistics. So that challenge can become something that you really want to engage with. How to find out, how to get women to talk and tell what's happening with their lives with regard to health. I mean, we could have a whole workshop about this, I can tell you. And it comes down to who your research assistants are, where you're meeting with women. Are you going to where they are or expecting them to come to you? Are you providing childcare so that they can talk in peace? Or, you know, there are many, many ways and culturally specific issues around gathering data about women and making sure that it's accurate and that they are comfortable and safe in the process. Okay, we're moving right along. I really hope that we have time at the end for more questions about all of these things and more discussion. Another question that came up in the online dialogue about the LOI is the question of data mobilization. Now, I think what this means is the how knowledge users, like, I don't know exactly what the questions are that have to do with data mobilization. But I guess one of the questions is, how do you bring this information that you're gathering back to the knowledge users? How do you make sure that it's useful to them? In what format are you going to present it? So one issue is, if you publish in academic journals and those journals are behind paywalls, then people in the local community won't have access to it. So you have to have some kind of a process for making the results of your research in print, at least, available to people, either passing them out or putting them in some kind of a library or a repository, or giving people access somehow. Now, in many places, people in the local community are not going to read a journal article. So you might need to have a workshop or a presentation of your project's results that use visual slides and other means, perhaps videos, perhaps photo voice, perhaps other, user-friendly ways of sharing the research results. Getting things into local newspapers is another good way to share what you found with people who can really use it. And again, this is going to depend on your project and your context, your situation. But one of the very important things about a participatory research project is that you don't just parachute into a community, do a bunch of focus groups or interviews, get your information, go away, publish it, and that's the end. There has to be you have to complete the cycle of sharing what you've found and of getting feedback from the participants about whether they think you actually understood what they were saying. Like, you might need to go through an iterative round of, have we got it right here? And then incorporating the feedback on what you thought the results were, to make sure that you've accurately expressed and represented what people were trying to say to you. This is, again, part of this cycle of participatory research, where you start by working with users, with knowledge users, to figure out what you want to do. Then you bring it back to them. And often the most successful research projects are those which generate further questions, because of the trust that you've built with people that you're working with. Then they may feel comfortable to say to you, this is great, but here's another question that's really bothering us. Here's another thing that we really need your help with working on. And so there's this cycle that goes on with putting forward a question, refining the question, figuring out how to do the work, the research, putting it together into information that's useful, testing the results that you've got, with getting feedback from the knowledge users, and then going on to another stage, a new project, a new question that needs to be answered. The third issue that came up online was research and development. And here again, I'm not quite sure what people meant by this question, but maybe it has to do with coming back to the theoretical importance of the research that you're planning to do. From an academic perspective, sometimes there are data gaps that appear in the literature that you try to fill for theoretical reasons, or because research hasn't really been done on a particular topic in your country or your area, or the field that you were trained in. And then, so you have, as an academic, a particular kind of idea about what you'd like to do. Sometimes when you go with that to community members, they may say, well, okay, but that's not really relevant to the problems that we're facing. So there's there might be a little bit of a tension there between what people need and what you think from a theoretical framework you'd like to be exploring. It's the communication around the political relevance and the immediate application of the research that needs to happen there, so that you can can figure out the best way to do what you want to do, and hopefully what the community needs. Maybe we can talk about this a little bit more, because I feel like I may not have understood this question about research and development thoroughly. Okay, so I think we're to the stage now when we could have a little bit of discussion, and I'd be happy to open the floor to people's questions. I believe Jean-Jacques is going to make an announcement about other opportunities for discussing these kinds of things. But I just, before I invite him to do that, I just wanted to say that some of the references that I've found about participatory research, health, artificial intelligence, and other aspects that are related, I think, to this project, I want to make that bibliography available. And I'm very aware that people in many universities may not have full access to all the journal articles that exist. So I hope that we can make PDFs or copies of those journal articles available, not just the bibliography itself. I think we're working on that over the next little while. Okay, Jean-Jacques, would you like to come in now and talk about next steps? And then maybe we can have the rest of the time for discussion with everyone's here. Who's here? Are you there?
He should be here. If not, he'll be here momentarily.
Okay, Liz, what, do you have any comments about the way that we can make articles available to people? Can we do that through the website, or what are your thoughts about that?
I saw the plea when you posted it. I think we can just try to have a compilation. We will work internally on having a compilation, and maybe we can just have a drive where we can just share all the resources there, and then we can share a link with folks.
Yeah, that would be great. Just, yeah, if we could just link to them somehow. These are technical challenges, which, you know, we will address. So Jean-Jacques told me that he sorry, go ahead. He said that he wanted to have another session.
No, I was just saying we will get...
Go ahead, you're saying.
No, I was just saying that we will get through them together, and some of these things are still a learning experience for us. So we get some things as we go along. So we will plead for leniency from our partners, but we are really stepping up and here to support them. Yeah, for sure. Jean-Jacques told me that he wants to have another session on Friday, next Friday at the same time, that it will just be for Q&A. So I believe he's planning to schedule that, another Zoom call. But for now, I'm going to stop sharing, and then, oh, well, one more slide, which is just a thank you slide. I'll stop sharing, and then maybe we can have questions and discussion specifically. How about that? Sounds good. At least Jean-Jacques is here.
Oh, go ahead, Jean-Jacques. Are you there? Do you want to talk about next Friday? You're still muted. I think you have to unmute him, Lisa.
Hello, everyone, and thank you, Professor Perkins. I'm so sorry I wasn't on this Zoom call to welcome you. Many of you were with me on the other one. So I guess we're each giving you our apologies for this technical difficulty. But it's actually great news. It's because we're getting such great engagement. Can you imagine 300 is too small. So the community that we're building is really amazing. So I want to just reinforce what Professor Perkins mentioned, which is that we will be having a Q&A session next Friday at the same time. And we will, of course, and we now know that 300 is too small. We're more than 300. So we're going to have a ceiling much higher than this. Part of this is also because you're so engaged in terms of your teams, right? So we had anticipated that the principal investigators would represent their teams, but perhaps more of you have brought your whole teams with you, which is fantastic because we love to meet everyone. And so we'll be sure to do that. I'm seeing a lot of questions on the chat, and you know, I want to thank Professor Perkins for having been a good sport and you know, got pushed forward, and of course with our colleagues, especially Lizwa. So thank you so much, and of course all of you for your patience. So I see a lot of questions in the chats, and perhaps it's a good thing. It's a good time to transition to this, and we can take those questions on Professor Perkins. You know, we'll divide them up, whether they're more administrative questions, and Lizwa and I can take those. And if there are more content level questions, then of course we'll defer to your expertise. So I'm just gonna, I see, okay, there's some hands up already. Sadri, go ahead. Oh yeah, I think Lizwa, sorry, we need to do this one by one, I guess. I don't have that power, Sadri. So.
Okay, I was just trying to make you a co-host, but
Oh, you're going to make me a co-host? Okay, so let me see.
in the meantime,
be
let me
able-
just in the meantime, let me just try and handle this and then do
Okay,
it.
thank you. And then I'll be able to do that myself, yeah.
Okay, so Sadri.
Okay, so as we're trying to give Sadri a voice, and Sadri, we are absolutely going to put you on. I'm just going to look at the chat here. So
I think it works right now.
it works
Thanks.
now. Awesome. So go ahead. Please.
Thank you. My name is Sadri Isnadi. I'm from Institute Pasteur in Tunis, Tunisia. Yes. So I looked at the structure of the letter of intent, including the number of words, maximum number of words to include in those boxes to fill in. I was somehow not sure because usually we fill in the entire boxes with the maximum number of words. You know, we're able to fill in the complete requirement for each box. And so this, all in all, it gives 18 pages of writing, because per page we have 500 words per page. So that's like sort of extensive body of work to include in the application. So it's not a letter of intent. Finally, it's really like appears as a whole grant or whole proposal to submit. So how should we deal with that? Knowing that, you know, by counting the number of words and representing the whole letter of intent as a Word document, we go with a maximum of 18 pages approximately.
Thank you so much, Sadri, for the question. If that's okay, Professor Perkins, I will take that question. Is that okay? All right. So we just wanted to give you lots of room. You're not obligated or expected to give us the maximum of words in each field. Some teams at the letter of intent phase, we're giving you, we want to know more about your project, but as you're correct, it's not quite the final application. So some teams have something close to final application maybe, right? And some teams won't. It doesn't really make a difference to us from the perspective of every team will get the opportunity to get all the support that it needs to get to the final application stage. So if in your case, you don't need all of that, all of those words, that's quite fine, right? So please don't feel that you have to fill it, right? Just tell us enough for us to have a more substantive understanding of your project. So what we did in the first phase, the registration phase, was to confirm eligibility. So all of you are here because having read your registration, you are eligible. The next phase now is to make sure that the project is sketched out so that we can get a better sense of some of the details, your partners, your knowledge users, right? And that's why Professor Perkins' workshop was very timely for us, so you can get into some of these substantive matters. And then we're going to meet again to have a workshop on the final application, and that is when we'll be looking for all the details. So thank you for that excellent question. Professor Mark, I'm sorry.